Welcome to this short recording as an introduction to critical reading. I will be going over what we mean by critical reading and introducing you to some strategies to help you begin to develop these skills that are going to be really important as you go through your academic degree. So most students find the ideas and insights and information in readings at university really fascinating and valuable. But sometimes the volume of reading and the writing style of many works that you will be engaging with can feel a bit off-putting. Fortunately, there are simple and effective strategies that can help you get through even long and difficult texts, help you locate key ideas and remember them. But first, let's clarify what it means to read critically. So in university, here, you'll be expected to do more than simply understand what you read. So we're not asking you to read only for information. You'll also be expected to question and test what you read and think about how you might apply what you read to real life situations. So we're going to be asking you to read looking for ways of thinking about the subject matter. And one definition of critical reading means reading with the goal of finding a deep understanding of the material. Critical reading in itself is a highly reflective skill, and it requires you to stand back and gain some distance from the text you are reading. So what difficulties do students face? Well, the first one to point out is it's about the unfamiliar. Um, when you start, you might feel like you are reading material that makes no sense. And of course, reading about things that are unfamiliar is much harder than reading about familiar material. It may take you much longer than you expect to understand a chapter in a book or a journal article. You may need to do further reading to understand an idea if it's not fully explained in the text you're reading. Sometimes going to introductory level textbooks can help provide explanations that you don't fully understand. But the key thing is to chip away at it. Don't give up on readings, don't give in, keep going back. And you're going to hear a lot of be critical, think critically, critically discuss. Students at the beginning of their university career might confuse the concept of critique with the idea that you're always supposed to criticise a reading. Others might confuse critical engagement with a text with this kind of hopeless task of distinguishing what is factual or what you feel is opinion based. But the aim of critical reading is not to find fault, but to assess the strength of the evidence and the argument. It is just as useful to conclude that a study or an article presents very strong evidence and a well reasoned argument as it is to identify studies or articles that you think are weak. And, we may have learned some bad habits elsewhere. The confusion of critical reading and being critical and critiquing can sometimes come from how we've been taught previously, where we may be memorizing answers that have been coded as so-called facts for one-time testing. And as a result, you might feel less prepared to critically engage with your texts and understand how they are part of an intellectual lineage or question the assumptions that have been built into the particular models of understanding that you've been exposed to in different disciplines and settings. Therefore, in asking you to become critical readers within many disciplines at university, we're asking you to develop a skill set which is diametrically opposed to the one you've learned at high school. So where to begin? So this 5-stage process is a good place to start. So the first stage is survey. And by this we mean skim through the reading, look for headings and subheadings and main ideas. Skimming through material, especially introductions and conclusions, can help you be a bit more strategic in choosing where to focus your critical efforts. Question. Think what questions this reading might answer for you and why it matters. Now, you may be given a set of guiding questions by your lecturer or tutor. Use these to help you try and work your way, find your path through the reading. Read. Read the section and paragraphs and see if you can answer any of your initial questions. Try not to take too many notes at this stage. So take some time to immerse yourself in the reading and connect up with the questions that you've got. Recall. Glance over the section and paragraphs and start to make notes. and maybe use a blank right-hand margin or a separate piece of paper. Try to summarise in your own words what you have read and make notes which indicate main points or supporting ideas. And when you are note-taking, when you're highlighting text, teach yourself to highlight arguments, so those places in a text where an author explains her moves, the concepts she uses, how she uses them, how she maybe arrives at her conclusions. Try not to focus too much on isolated facts and examples, no matter how interesting they may be. Instead, look for large patterns that give some purpose and order and meaning to those examples. Again, here the opening sentences of paragraphs can be really important for this task. And when you recall, begin to think about how you might use a portion of a text in the argument you are forging in your own paper. So try to remain aware of how this portion fits into the whole argument from which it is taken. Paying attention to context is a fundamental critical move. And part of recall might be using quotations, but use these critically. This means that you should not substitute a quotation for your own articulation of a point. Rather, introduce the quotation by laying out the judgments you're making about it and the reasons why you're using it. Really good practice is to have a quotation followed by some further analysis. Review. When you've done the above steps for each section or paragraph, then skim through the whole reading and create a brief written outline of the chapter. Ask yourself, has it answered your original questions? Was it useful? Some questions you might want to ask yourself to help you start. Why did my lecturer assign this reading? What did they want me to get out of it? Did the author convince me of their point? If so, what evidence or support did I find particularly strong? And if not, what were the flaws or lapses or weaknesses in the argument? What was the author's evidence? Who were their sources? And what makes the evidence and sources credible? Is there anything that might throw this into question? Did the author leave out any important points or information? Did they overemphasize or underemphasize anything? What is the author's come from place? What is their position? How do I know this? Does it matter? And if so, why? What does the author assume that their audience believes, values, or doubts? How do I know? Do the author's assumptions about the audiences matter? And if so, why? Having read and thought about the piece, what questions do I have? What else would I like to know? And does this piece remind me of others that I've read? How is it similar or different from them? What does this piece have that others do not? Practicing these strategies will help not only your reading, but also your writing. Understanding how authors craft well-written, credible and convincing text will help you create your own. And it might sound like a paradox, but one of the best ways to improve your writing is to improve your reading.